This next speaker, Stefania, this is the third part of a longer speech, so it's going to kind of be in the middle of things. And she's going to talk about safe ways to capture big opportunities.
Tom and Steve had figured out it was time to capture the big opportunities. But they realized they were facing some huge unknowns. You see, they had already used the mosaic approach to be able to get all the financing they needed for a whole suite of new products. This suite of products applied to a huge, multi-billion-dollar marketplace globally that was growing in double digits. So they were particularly interested in this concept I called the safety net, because they were aware of how many unknowns there are when you introduce a brand new product into a huge, huge marketplace. Something else came up to them while they began to think about their next opportunity here. Growth actually started to reveal a difference between the two partners. You see, it turns out that Tom was 10 years younger than Steve. Steve was looking at his company as an opportunity for some personal liquidity to protect his family against the unknowns so he could have some retirement. He was looking at the company as sort of a near-term solution. Tom, on the other hand, was looking at the company as the golden goose, the opportunity to grow it and nurture it for its future value. But the two had agreed for sure that this was an exciting opportunity, and they wanted to grow the business. So the only question was how big they were going to grow it. The first thing they worried about was how big a safety net they would have to have. If it was a really, really big business, it would need a big safety net. If it was a smaller company, it would need a smaller safety net. You know what that really meant? That meant that Steve and Tom believed that $5 million of equity for a safety net cost more ownership and give up than $2 million of equity. But it's not true. If you can get credit for your future today. So I have a question for you. What would you advise Tom and Steve? I'm going to give you two choices, and by a show of hands, I'd like you to tell me what you would say. One is you would advise them to throttle back their growth and get a small safety net. Alternatively, go for the big. Get a big safety net and capture your whole opportunity. How many say, get a small safety net for some moderated growth? Show of hands. How many say, go for the big opportunity? Get a big safety net. Okay. Well, let me tell you what really did happen. Tom and Steve decided to go for the golden ring. They decided to share their passion-driven future of $150 million with some venture capitalists. Now, they documented their focus, but they very carefully never included anything that would associate with the percent ownership of the equity that they actually sought. Now, this is very, very important, as you'll see in a minute. Tom and Steve shared this information with lots of venture capitalists, and 5 of them caught their passion. 5 venture capitalists offered Tom and Steve all the equity they wanted. What surprised the two, Tom and Steve, is that each of the 5 venture capitalists wanted a different percent ownership for the exact same number of dollars. The highest valuation was almost twice the lowest. What might surprise you is that Tom and Steve did not accept any of those 5 terms. They created a 6th term sheet with the highest valuation and the best terms and conditions. And then I encouraged them to go ahead and invite the investor they like best. So I'm going to ask you in a minute to vote on who you think they invited to participate in his company. I'm going to give you 3 choices, and I'm going to ask you to vote on them. First, the venture capitalist who gave him the highest valuation. Second, the venture capitalist they liked the most that they thought they could actually work with well together. Third, the venture capitalist who was the smartest in the industry. Who says the highest valuation? Show of hands. Who says the guy they liked the best? And who says the smartest with the industry? Well, interesting, because they got it all. You see, it's not at all a surprise that the individual who was the most passionate about Tom and Steve's future was also the one who delivered the most money for the least equity. That's the highest valuation. And he was the most passionate and most interested and most knowledgeable about the industry. You see, getting the highest valuation isn't just a good idea. It's an imperative. It's a mathematical confirmation that the investors you have identified is the right one for you. Someone who shares your passion, can see your future, and is willing to give you credit for that future today. But interestingly enough, Tom really liked another of the venture capitalists, a feisty guy who would ask all kinds of questions. Very informative and inquisitive, but he'd come in with the lowest valuation. But Tom decided to spend a little bit more time with that individual and was able to eradicate some of the concerns that had caused that venture capitalist to depress his original valuation. As a result, that feisty venture capitalist came all the way up to the highest valuation. Wow. Value, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. Your future is of different value to different people. That's what Tom and Steve found out.